Right. Yes, I am back again, I believe. I hope everyone can hear me. This is True Power is Mine, and this is TPIM SR Live. Today's date, August 20th, 2019, the year of our Lord. Boys and girls, girls and boys. Today I want to talk, I've just found this video. I want to kind of break it down real quick. Then we'll head directly from this into the current news, what's going on right now. But
implications of what he is doing are no different than the propaganda campaign that Hitler and his Nazi unit carried on in Germany that ended up eliminating 6 million Jewish people. Now, what is most interesting is that Hitler said
now, I just want you guys to remember that the thing about it is that this time around, it's not going to be the Jews. I think we know categorically the population targeted for deletion this time around.
very same thing. He said, number one, that the Jews were genetically inferior to the Aryans.
If one believes that the German people would have tolerated the concentration camps and the gas chambers, if news media, like the programs that Mr. Brown is setting on, if those people were willing to bring discordant views out into the open, I don't believe the concentration camps and the gas chambers could have continued to exist in Germany.
Just stop it. Now, this is make-believe time. This is when old boys talking, oh, I don't think that. Of course they would. Human nature is human nature. The human nature of the thing is to kill and subdue so that your genetic offspring will have the one up. Now, I don't care if you're German. I don't care if you're Kemet. I don't care if you're Islamic. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care what you are. That is what we're wrestling with as humans constantly. This insatiable need to secure the future of our own children versus being civil and a decent human being. And the Germans fell horribly short.
Back in the 70s, a man named Dr. William Shockley, a noted scientist, embarked upon the mission of proving to the world that Black people are genetically inferior, without, I might add, the benefit of any formal background in genetics. He became front-page news and won headlines with his controversial views. On campus after campus, unrest followed his every visit. My position then and now is that if a supremacist cannot be rationally debated, perhaps he has a point. After the debate you're now going to see, Dr. Shockley went back into oblivion. I don't claim that the 1973 interview did it alone, but I am of the opinion that it helped. I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, racial superiority with Dr. William Shockley.
But the sad thing about it, he did not go into oblivion. He just went underground. That's how we have the Dylan Roofs. That's why we have these other guys coming out of the woodworks, blowing away people. It's because of the hate. It's because of this notion that you could genetically annihilate me, which is incorrect. How can you genetically annihilate something that comes from you? As long as there's Black people, then potentially there could be white people produced from them. Asian people as well, Hispanics also. The only person in danger of being genetically annihilated is the Black folks. Because once we're gone, once the ability to make the melanization in the skin is gone, it's not coming back. This is what I'm talking about with this projection thing and how it's been used as a weapon, not only against Black folks, but against gay folks, against fat folks, against whatever folks. You target your enemy with your worst attributes. So when people see it come to light, oh, okay. Let's continue.
We have two very prominent educators, scholars on Black Journal tonight, and we feel that it is important to defend the First Amendment rights of all Americans. Dr. William Shockley, one of our guests, has had quite a difficult time speaking at some universities, and particularly some Black college students do not agree with his theories. On Black Journal, we feel that Dr. Shockley's rights in the First Amendment area are parallel to Black people's rights. That is, that Dr. Shockley must have a platform for his views if Black people are to have a platform for their views.
See, that's the problem, though. In the system of superiority and or power, that's not true. If the Dr. Shockley there had the power, this gentleman would not be talking. Dr. Wessing would not be talking. They would be on some sort of concentration camp with a news blackout. Because apparently, as long as the news don't talk about these atrocities, they can occur. Please.
Dr. Frances Welsing, on the other side, has difficulty in expressing her views on legitimate mass media outlets because many whites do not agree with her theory of gender.
Now, that's what I just said. She cannot have a voice or a platform because she is not in a position of power or affiliate with those typically holding or wielding the power in the society. We have to see past these rights and really understand this for what it is. They're not rights, they're privileges. If you're in a privileged class or caste or whatever you want to call it, then you can do that. But if you're not in the privileged class or caste, you better watch your P's and Q's. Let's continue.
Genetics. Now let's find out what the controversy is about. Dr. Shockley, please give us the benefit basically of what your theory is.
My principal point, Mr. Brown, is not so much a theory of black-white differences, but is summed up in one word, which is the theme of my appearance on your program and my efforts, and the word is dysgenics. And dysgenics means effectively downbreeding, retrogressive evolution. And I fear that this is worst for the Black community, and I particularly welcome an opportunity to appear on Black Journal just for these reasons. And let me say also that when I first met Dr. Welsing, it was not Black students who were disrupting, but white students. And Dr. Welsing made a very sincere and I thought extremely effective effort, a well-planned effort. It was not effective with these white students at Staten Island Community College, so I would have a chance to speak. In fact, I think they prevented her from saying what she wanted to say when she was trying to gain me a platform. So my main theme is that we have problems that we should face and we should look at connected with dysgenics. And I welcome any opportunity I have to bring this out so that people can look at it and worry about it.
Dr. Shockley, you are accused of having a theory that is a white racist theory. How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond to that by saying that I've considered whether or not I am a racist. Racist is an epithet that used to damage my self-esteem, but it doesn't.
It doesn't. He doesn't give a shit about it anymore. You know, he's not going to really tell you the real definition of racist is basically a group of people who have the power that can offset another group of people's ability to live the said American dream. And on that point, he might not be a racist. He might not have that economic power to wield, but he definitely subscribes to the general power structure, and he tries to reinforce the power structure by his pseudo-scientific beliefs.
Anymore. I feel it's untrue. If you look in the dictionary as to what racist means, it means emotional feelings, irrational feelings associated with fear and hate. If I really had those, I don't think I would be here this evening. I feel
the only reason why dude's there is nobody else would have him on their particular program. CBS, NBC, ABC at that particular time wouldn't touch this feller. That's the only reason why he's there.
I feel that what I'm engaged in is a demand for diagnosis. And I'd like to say some more about this chart, which we'll come to probably later, which shows the disproportionate rates of reproduction for the least effective elements of the Black community. I'd like to say more about that than we should in just this brief introduction. But
the least effective elements. And he will never go into the social connotations of why are they economically non-viable? Why are they not successful? And there's a whole host of reasons, from education to actual physical opportunities for upward mobility in the society. Meaning you can start off as a peasant and perhaps end up a lord. Well, that's not true.
I think there is another word that better describes what I'm involved in, and that word is raceology, which means a scientific analysis of racial differences. And I have a faith that reason is a good thing, and I feel as you do about the First Amendment, but maybe with a slightly different emphasis. I think the really important thing about the First Amendment is it is a way of guaranteeing a high likelihood that truth will emerge as a result of conflicting ideas being expressed. And I have a thesis and a basic belief that truth is a good thing and will be of benefit to man.
Thank you. Dr. Frances Welsing, give us the benefit of your theory, please.
Well,
Now she's going to break it down. The doctor here, many of you guys already know who she is. Very articulate, very well spoken, to the point, precise. The only thing I disagree with her on is her definition of racial annihilation.
my theory was, I wrote the paper in 1969. I wrote a paper called The Crest Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. And the sole reason behind writing that paper was an attempt to understand the behavior of white people in relationship to all people of color, every place in the world, black, brown, red, and yellow people. And the paper was presented to the Americans at the National Medical Association, the section on psychiatry in neurology, because back in 1969, the Black Caucus in the American Psychiatric Association, we had said that racism, and when we talk about racism, we're talking about the white supremacy behavior of white people, that racism was the #1 mental health problem in the nation, and it was the #1 cause of other mental health problems. And I wanted to understand what this thing of racism really is all about, because it's the thing that has caused woe and misery and suffering for the vast majority of the people on this planet that are classified as non-white. And in my attempt to understand why the necessity of white people to keep saying that white is superior and that the condition of non-white is inferior. And the more I thought about it, in conjunction with an idea that a friend of mine had, that racism was a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people, I put those ideas together with what we know about genetics, what we know about the condition of skin whiteness itself. The condition of skin whiteness is the genetic inability to produce skin pigment called melanin. This is a genetic recessive trait. It is a genetic deficiency state, not as defined by Frances Welsing, but defined by geneticists and dermatologists, that the inability to produce the skin pigment of melanin or melanin pigment is described as albinism. And I think that white people, even though most white people are not consciously understanding their problem in genetics, they are certainly aware that they are genetically dominated by people of color. That's why it was a statement, one drop of black blood makes you black, because people of color have the genetic capacity to annihilate white people. And so unless white people control the reproductivity of people of color, then we can postulate that perhaps one day there won't be any white people. And I think that the very survival of white people necessitates.
That's where I disagree. Because as long as there's black people, then the genetic albinism that she's talking about could potentially reoccur. So therefore, there's no such thing as white genetic annihilation. But there is certainly I guess an argument could be made that there is a such thing as black genetic annihilation, because as you annihilate all the folks that can make melanin, then that recessive gene cannot kick that back on. Let's continue.
That they project genetic inferiority on people of color, because it is they who really are aware that they are genetic recessive and perhaps genetically inferior to people of color. And I am not saying this to call the condition of skin whiteness to say, well, no, white people are inferior. I'm not saying it for that purpose, but I think that it is of prime importance for the majority of people in the world to understand why it is that white people the effective majority, large numbers of white people, have to move in a hostile and an aggressive way against people of color, and have to constantly focus on it's you who's genetically inferior, because they realize that there's something wrong with their genetic status. Now,
may I take a call?
Oh, sure,
all right.
please.
Let me.
Hold on, before he takes that call. I want you to put in your minds Dylan Roof, the Carolina incident in El Paso, and the Christchurch shooting. All these were motivated by hatred of another person's skin tone. Bottom line, you can say what you will, but that's what it is. The Oklahoma bombing, same gag, same hate is in the air. Until we deal with that, until we consciously deal with that, well, you guys might as well get cut and paste out. Cut and paste this, hopes and prayers, thoughts and prayers going out, because there's going to be more. There is most certainly going to be more. Now let's take this call.
So that, because we have a number of calls, and we'll see what the public wants to find out also. Just 1 second. Hello, go ahead, please. You're on Black Journal.
I would like to ask the question, why does the doctor feel that his theory, Dr. Shockley, why does he feel that your theory is correct?
Oh my God, that dude sounded like Brother David almost. I know it wasn't Brother David, but it almost sounds like Brother David.
Well, let me say that's a long question. Let me point out one aspect. It's a question that calls for a very long answer. I think I might just at this point say that in a time like 1 hour, we may expose a problem and encourage thinking about it, and this is a very valuable thing. But to cover either Dr. Welsing's views or mine, and let me say here are, just to show that these things exist, is a pamphlet that she was good enough to give me some time ago.
That was upside down.
Well, that was upside down.
Yeah,
thank you.
Right.
And this is one of my own. It's actually a collection of a debate.
The imperative of ethnic education is yours.
This is the issue of the journal. Mine was the title of my paper is somewhat different from this, but I want to say that speaking for myself, if people would like to write to me at Stanford University, I have a post box there, post box S, which is the same as Shockley and Stanford. I will try to supply.
How come he didn't be honest to say SS? Because you know this is what old boy's about. SS. Waffen. I'm just playing.
More information, and I'm sure Dr. Welsing will say what she can do about telling people how to reach her pamphlet. But now let me say this chart.
She has that facial expression like, I just want to smack shit out of this fella and get on with the program.
That I held up a moment ago is very important in respect to this question of why I think there may be what proves a basic difference. But I'm going to say that if there were not a basic difference in intellectual capacity in the past, there probably will be a basic difference between black and white intellectual capacity in the future, simply because of the reproduction patterns.
No, simply because of the educational patterns. Now, if we're defining intellectual capacity by educational standards, and if a group is artificially being suppressed or being unable to ascertain those educational resources, then absolutely what he's saying is correct. That's self-fulfilling prophecy. If I deny you food and I'm like, oh, before too long, you're going to see skin and bones on this feller, and lo and behold, 6 months later, you're just a walking skeleton. That's self-fulfilling prophecy. It really has nothing to do with you other than your lack of power to get the resources you need to be viable.
And these are Census Bureau data, and this is the most threatening aspect. And what it indicates is that for the black women of the lowest intellectual social class,
Wow.
Which are rural farm women, generally the
Wow.
education is least, the average number of...
Hold on. I'm stopping this clown right here. The rural black woman, so the woman that could take nothing and make a feast out of it, the woman who can take plants and make medicine out of it, the woman who can hold together a family when the man's being economically brutalized, the children are being socially brutalized. She is at the lowest tier. Okay, I got you, bud.
Children is 5.4. For women with college degrees, it's 1.9. And so this is definitely unfavorable. It is reproducing far more at the bottom end and not enough to keep even at the top end.
Dr. Shockley, can
For
you
whites, let me
explain?
just finish this. For whites, the numbers are also in this direction, but nowhere nearly as severe.
Dr. Shockley, I think that in all fairness, you should explain to the audience why it is that you have, first of all, you have a very large segment of the Black population who are on farms, who are deprived in cities. Why don't you explain at the time that you're showing this, who is keeping Black people in a situation like they're in? I mean, it could be, you could turn it around the other way, where you could have very large numbers of Black people who are exposed to educational opportunities like white people, who are exposed to housing, who are exposed to health facilities. Why don't you explain that at the same time that you put figures like that?
I'm sure you would explain it,
no, but I
Dr.
think
Welsing,
it's important
but
in
one must say first things first. And you've raised the basic question there, and that is whether the disadvantages are primarily a lack of opportunity or whether they are primarily a basic genetic difference. And let me mention one thing, which is that in certain areas, there is no doubt about Black superiority. Blacks are superior in visual acuity, and they're superior in a systematic way. Now, I don't expect that people will understand the details of this, but I simply want to show that quantitative work can be done. This happens to be a research job of my own. And what it shows, because these points that you see here lie on a line, which is not the
yeah, he said it right. Lie. They lie on a line. This guy's straight using scientific, I would say pseudoscientific information to facilitate a point that Black folks are genetically or psychologically inferior to white folks. And he's using the facts and figures of his day in 1974 to prove this point. When we all know there was systematic discrimination, we all know that there was social discrimination, meaning that you can go down there to the railroads or go down there to the shipyard or go down there to the airport, try to get a job. No, we don't got nothing for you, buddy. But he's not going to say that. He's not going to plug that into his diabolical equation.
Central line, but they lie systematically on a line. What it says is that so far as visual acuity is concerned, Blacks are systematically better than whites. It's as if their bell-shaped curve, their distribution curve, were pushed upwards compared to whites for visual acuity, or at least for the avoidance of bad eyesight, such that if the same shift occurred for IQ, it would mean that the average IQ distribution would be up by 9 points rather than down by about 15 points, which is the typical average.
Dr. Shockley, visual acuity is probably something that the system of...
Now, Dr. Welsing is going to break it down on him. And the only reason why I'm breaking in so much, guys, I don't want YouTube to possibly say that this is some sort of copyright infringement. I already know the copyright's out of date, so this is all public information. I want to welcome Brother David to the show. Butler, welcome to the show. Hopefully you enjoy it. Sister Barbara, welcome to the show. Yes, this man is not only a clown, sister. He is an ass clown.
White supremacy has not necessarily seen the need to affect the environment that Black people are in so that it will alter the fact that they have visual acuity that is superior to whites. The fact of visual acuity is not attacked in the same way as educational opportunity and job performance is attacked. And I think that
it's evidence for a genetic difference.
Well, you see what I'm saying? There might be many, many more genetic differences where people of color appear superior.
If I may, we have a number of people and we'd like to get to as many as possible. If you could make your answers, not to compromise your explanation, but if you could make your answers as succinct, I would appreciate it because we'd like to involve the public as much as we can. One moment, please.
Boy, one thing I tell you, I know how old Tony here is feeling, man. Trying to do a show and take phone calls at the same time, it's incredibly difficult. Even if you had to, I don't know, it's just incredibly difficult. One-man show.
You're on Black Journal. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was wondering if Dr. Shockley would explain the basic difference between the course he is taking in explaining white supremacy and the course that Hitler took during the Nazism reign.
Thank you.
Well, there are enormous differences. In fact, the lesson to be learned from Nazi history is frequently very misunderstood. And it is a lesson which Mr. Brown has told us about earlier.
Yeah, here's the lesson to be understood. Before you start in with the hate genocide campaign, make sure you have the true technological and numerical advantage. That's the lesson to be learned. All right, because if you don't, you're going to have a good, 12-year run, and then you're going to be crushed by the world. But as long as you have the drones, as long as you have the biological agents and the nuclear weapons, Nazi go. That's the lesson. Let's continue.
It's the First Amendment. It's not that eugenics is intolerable. Actually, the eugenic programs, which are the opposite of dysgenics, eugenic programs are not inconceivable. They're not inhumane. Denmark has been carrying out programs with strong eugenic implications for maybe 30 years. And it's important to note that since World War II, Denmark's per capita homicide rate dropped and is now approximately 1/20th. That is, the number of deaths of probability of being killed in a year by a violent homicide is roughly the order of 100 times less for young Danes than it is for young American blacks.
Can I?
Now, but the lesson, let me say what
Now, this was in 1974. I wonder what's the statistics like today. Young Danes death versus young African Americans death. I would deduce it's quite higher.
The lesson of Nazi history we have in this country, and it will protect us. It's just the thing that makes this program possible. The First Amendment, which allows freedom of speech. If one believes that is not the right answer, then one has to be one of the most anti-German racists that can be. If one believes that the German people would have tolerated the concentration camps and the gas chambers, if news media, like the program...
This is where it's at. This is what I really wanted you guys to hear, what he just said. And why is that important? Well, who's getting banned on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all these other platforms are the people who are speaking out against the basically the powers that are coming down, whether they be conservative or liberal. If they talk about the true power structure and how it's devastating the populations of this nation, then they're being shut down. We are getting prepared for another genocide, y'all. You guys don't want to accept this. You don't want to believe it, but that's why they're shutting down all these different personalities, from Minister Farrakhan to Alex Jones to blah, blah, blah. It's to stifle information being traded with others, unfiltered. TPIM SR Live is an unfiltered show. I don't answer to some sort of corporate conglomerate overlord handler. I answer to you guys, the listener, the viewer, the supporter. This is what he's talking about. Once you remove that aspect of the game, yeah, zig how, motherfucker.
Programs that Mr. Brown is setting on, if those people were willing to bring discordant views out into the open, I don't believe the concentration camps and the gas chambers could have continued to exist in Germany.
I'd like to comment, because I'd like to say that I don't think that there's a major difference between what Dr. Shockley is doing. I don't think that Dr. Shockley is fully aware of what he is doing and why he is doing what he's doing. But the long-range implications of what he is doing are no different than the propaganda campaign that Hitler and his Nazi unit carried on in Germany that ended up eliminating 6 million Jewish people. Now, what is most interesting is that Hitler said the very same thing. He said, number one, that the Jews were genetically inferior to the Aryans. Number two, he was aware that the Semites had genetic...
All right, right here. This is where I want to break it down. When she says Semite, she's not talking about the small hat Jew. She's talking about the real Jews spoken of in the Bible, or written of in the Bible, which are melanated people. But she doesn't really say this on this program, but this is what she's talking about.
Genetically dominant material, genetic material to the Aryans. And if we begin to understand the way that people who were in Europe at the time that the Semites arrived from Africa, When the Semites arrived in Europe from Africa, they were people who had substantial amounts of color and who had very kinky hair because they were from the continent of Africa. And the Europeans, the white people who were there, had a reaction, a color reaction to the Semites that is no different than the reaction and the concern on the part of people who are white in this area of the world or any other area of the world to people who have the genetic capacity to produce color, who can genetically annihilate their position. And I think it's very, very important, even though Dr. Shockley, I am convinced that Dr. Shockley believes that he is perhaps elevating science with all of his charts and all of his figures, but he doesn't understand the things that propel him as a white individual in a social system that has programmed him throughout his life and programmed large numbers of people like him to focus on the genetics of people of color in such a way as to destroy people of color.
I would like to ask a question, and Dr. Shockley, if you could answer it yes or no, I would appreciate it. Do you believe that Black people are inferior in intelligence because of their heredity?
I have a standard statement. It is not yes or no. It's memorized. I say at the same time every.
Oh, God, it's memorized so he doesn't have to be put on the spot. Of course, old boy believes that. Of course. But he will never say it. And he's going to try to take us through this mental gymnastic course. Let's do it.
Every time, I think. What I say is this. My research leads me, and it's a tragic conclusion, really. My research leads me inescapably to the opinion that the major cause of the American Negro's intellectual and social deficits is hereditary and racially genetic in origin, and thus not remediable to a major degree by practical improvements in environment.
All right, if you believe.
All right, stop. For one, let's take what he just said for face value. The American Negro. All right, now let's look and study really fast in the next 5 seconds the history of the American Negro. Breeding farms. That's all I need to say. Look up breeding farms and activities that were going on basically from 1822 to the end of the Civil War in order to maintain slave numbers, population. They had to inbreed moms with sons and uncles. I mean, it was inbreeding. Whenever you inbreed, whatever you lack the physical choice to or who or what you're going to mate with or procreate with, that sets up the stage for inbreeding. And I don't care who you are, you start fucking your sister and your mom, you start becoming a retarded son of a bitch really quick. Let's continue.
Believe that the position relatively of Black Americans to white Americans is based on a genetic inferiority, and I will accept the responsibility for that word. Then what do you see as the solution to the problem?
Well, I see the first aspect of this is to prevent the problem from becoming worse by dysgenics. This first word.
Would you translate dysgenics for me and the audience? Would that be sterilization?
No, dysgenics, you see, means what that other chart I showed you says.
Should blacks,
the least effective element.
Should blacks be sterilized?
No.
Oh, stop it. Sterilization. Fuck the word sterilization. All he's really talking about is no baby making. They don't give a fuck if you fuck or not. They don't want you to make no babies. That's what this is all about. And that's why we're having all these abortion laws. Little girl, you can't get no abortion. This is what it's ultimately about. This dude wants to control your pussy. He wants to let you know who you can fuck, how many babies you can have, and really, even if you're intellectually viable to have a baby, this is going to be the true death of the humanity. Whenever we give up our ability, our sovereignty, our sexual sovereignty, whenever we give that up for whatever cause, that will be the collective end of us all, because we are all in this shit together. Whether you want to accept this or not, if it pisses you off or not, I'm sorry, but we're all in this together. Either we make babies, we make strong families, and we carry on with humanity, or we go down this retarded bullshit of inbreeding and fucking, oh my God, you gotta be like me, you gotta look like me, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad that we haven't progressed past this baby step, because there's no way we're getting off this planet, boys and girls, with this bullshit going on in the mind. Let's continue.
I have a
But
this
if
then
blacks
gets
are
into
a
the
problem, and we do not allow,
this is inhumane. And
Dr.
I think one
Shockley
can
wants
find more
black people
humane
to
solutions to this.
voluntarily
well, then how
sterilize
would
themselves.
then
I would propose something in which one of the key phrases is regardless of sex, race, or welfare status. And this is the proposal. I call it a thinking exercise. It's mentioned.
I call it a retarded exercise. And a scary connotation to what he's about ready to say. What happens when some fucking wise ass comes up with this notion? You know, I believe in reparations for the black folks, but before you can be reparated, you have to get a chip and you have to become neutered or spayed, whichever applies to you. And then we cut you a check. How many people will fall for that? Oh, I'm going to get my check and I'll be able to fuck as much as I want without consequence. How many people will fall for the okie doke? I say, fuck teaching me how to fish to feed me for a day. Just open up the fucking gate, get your goons away. I'll take me and my family up to the fishing hole and I'll pull out as enough fish as we need to feed ourselves. Let's continue with this nonsense.
In that pamphlet that I showed that you can obtain. And it goes this way, that you would offer a bonus to everyone to be sterilized. Now, we know we have a population explosion problem. We know that in India, that bonuses in the form of transistor radios
would
are
this
offered to
bonus
people.
would this bonus be directed to black people specifically, more than
Mr.
whites?
Brown, Mr. Brown, what did I say just a moment ago? I said, regardless of...
He said, fuck you niggas, die. That's what he basically said in not so many words. But basically, yeah, he just said it right there. There will be bonuses offered for voluntary sterilization. Wait till that shit comes back around. Oh yeah, give me a chip, give me a cell phone. I don't need no baby. I can upload my consciousness. You fucking fools. This shit is all old. The reason why I brought this particular video out today to show you how long ago these people were talking about this shit. And look at the state we're in today in 2019. Keep on playing your games. Keep on acting like none of this is real. Keep on pretending. Physical annihilation's not around the corner. Hopefully you enjoy your fucking train ride. Let's continue.
Sex, race, or welfare status.
Now, there is a group.
Dr. Shockley,
There is a
That's
group.
what I say.
There is a group of white people to whom this offer
This-
should be made also.
Absolutely.
What
Now, the
group
offer
is
will...
that?
And who's this group of white people? See, they don't go into death, but I will for you. They're talking about you rednecks. Fucking white trash. Trailer park fucking crew. Yeah, you guys. The unfucking desirable. It's the ones who makes the elites look like fucking idiots. You guys. They don't care about you. They want you dead just like the niggers and the spics and the rest of us. This is what I hope that you all wake up to. This is what I hope you all see. Fuck these fucking arrogant elitist motherfuckers. They're pieces of fucking filth. We are human beings and we deserve the best. All of us collectively. Let's continue.
The offer is based upon the best estimates, best scientific estimates that one can have of any genetically carried disabilities. Now, there are some, I think, that any humane person would have no doubt about. And Dr. Welsing talked about dominant and recessive genes. I want to point out that sometimes a dominant gene can be a very bad thing, and it is a very bad thing.
but not
When it's talking about melanization, because we've been brutalizing you motherfuckers for the past 500 fucking years.
A neurological disease called Huntington's chorea, which is something
which
like
is more
multiple
prominent
sclerosis.
in white people than black
That is
people.
correct.
So all you chicks with Down syndrome kids, fucking sterilize you bitches and give you a couple of bucks. That's what he's saying.
And I think that one should offer a large bonus for anyone who might be
Dr.
potentially
Shockley.
carrying Huntington's chorea.
Dr. Shockley, are
Beyond this,
you
it goes
aware?
on with some other factors in this, but Dr. Welsing wishes to speak.
Are you aware that white people have more genetic diseases that affect their nervous system than people of color than black people?
Oops. Nope. He was not aware of that stupid shit, or else he wouldn't have said that retarded fucking statement. This is where she just wears his monkey ass out. When you jump into that scientific arena, you better jump into it with an academic background. You better know what the hell you're talking about, and you better know the current status of whatever scientific study you're engaging in. Obviously, old boy dealt. Let's hear his response.
I wouldn't be at all surprised. And I think
Now, would
blacks
you
have
suggest? Would
apparently
you
have higher
suggest
heart
that all of
problems.
these? Would you?
Blacks have a higher heart problem, homie, because black folks at that time in 1974 hog mogged chitlins and all that garbage ass foods. Most of the conscious people wasn't hitting the point about eating that vegetables, eating them plants, eating them herbs, eating and consuming things that earth made and not was processed by Oscar Mayer fucking wieners. That's why motherfuckers are dying of hyper fucking tension.
Suggest that all of these white people who are carrying these defective genes, whose families may carry these defective genes, that they be examined and it would be suggested to them that they be sterilized. Would you suggest this?
Yes, I think I would probably.
Oh, he wouldn't. He wouldn't do that because he would have to look into his own people. Cousin Joe, fucking Aunt Sally, all these fucking lunatic motherfuckers. You're going to kill them? No. The Nazis tried. Yeah, they fucking, if you was retarded in Nazi Germany, your ass would be on a fucking, let's just say, detention center, re-education camp situation until you died. See, this is what we're really talking about, life and death. And who is this guy to choose or determine you or your people doesn't need to exist? There's enough room for every retarded bastard in the world and every so-called normal person too, and everybody in between. There's enough room here for all of us. The only thing that is stopping the game from really being beautiful is the fucking hate.
In general.
Go ahead. You're on Black Journal, please.
What we know about ancient black civilizations, how can American blacks suddenly be genetically regressive?
Thank you.
Let me just say this. What is very interesting is
let me just say this real quick too. They're not going to talk about the ancient black civilizations for one. They're just that question was like it's never even fucking was said. I'm going to speak on it. What about the precursors to the algebraic formula? Because the pyramids were built without so-called trigonometry, geometry, or algebra. Because those systems of basically measurements were not invented at that time. And then we look at the ancient ruins of Zimbabwe. How was that built? Then we also look at the Olmec civilizations and some of the ancient ruins in Latin America and South America, and even North America has complex astrological sites aligned. And obviously they didn't have the benefit of the Arabic numbering system, algebra, trigonometry, geometry, because the capacity for people to tap into the true source of the universe has always, will always, and is to be there for those willing to open themselves up and get that knowledge to do what they need to do in the 3D realm. Now let's continue with their little show here.
In the study of biology, biologists who have studied evolution, one of the very interesting things that they say is that the more functional skin pigment cells in the animal kingdom, the higher you are on the scale of phylogenetic ascension. In other words, nature in the course of evolution went to its highest state when it produced a cell that could produce pigment, and that we were sliding backwards. The mutation to albinism is a step backwards in the scale of evolution. Are you aware of that, Dr. Shockley?
And let me explain why. What she's saying is basically when you cannot basically go out into the sun, work all day without being blistered and fucked up, you have to use your reason and logic to somehow compensate. In other words, shield yourself from nature. Perhaps that's why the world's being destroyed, because those in power know that they cannot go outside and work in the sun all day without being burnt the fuck up. So now we're dealing with the spiritual side of this thing. Why is the sun so hot? Why are those in power so affected by it? And the reality of this is it's a genetic backlog. In other words, as long as you're in a subterranean situation, it doesn't matter if you're melanated or not. In other words, if you're in a cave, motherfucker, it doesn't matter if you're melanated or not. But as soon as you come out into the sun, it matters. Let's continue.
No, I'm not aware of that particular one. I am aware of another basic genetic difference, and that is that the rate of maturation of a neurological system gets longer and longer the more advanced the animal is. And that is one of the items on the racial difference, that the neurological development of blacks is faster than whites. Black babies walk on the average a month earlier than white babies. And the period
and
of
black
gestation...
people are much more creative also than white.
Dr. Wells, Shockley, correct me if I'm incorrect. Didn't the Giselle schedule?
But all they're talking about is what is allowed to them economically to manifest this thought that they are superior or more talented. I mean, creative. What she said, black folks are more creative. Could it just be that people who are in the creative business understand that they don't care where the ideal comes from as long as the ideal's a hit, versus those people who are in science, let's say product development, knows that it's the team that brings forth the product, not the individual, versus say a singer or a dancer or a athlete who's judged on their personal physical ability to do whatever they're doing. All this is irrelevant, yo. I could take anybody from any town, any race, given the correct environmental influences. I can make you a genius. I can make you a leader. I can make you whatever you want. But if you're denied the fundamentals, and I'm talking about water, electricity, a fucking couple bucks in your pocket, if you're denied just that, then the conclusion of your little life experience is going to be radically different than those who have been given all. And at the end of the day, we're still talking about economic viability.
Which tested the intelligence of children, make a correlative between intelligence and walking early?
Yes.
And I would think it probably would have been negative.
No, it was not. It was positive.
Well,
the motor skills on the Giselle schedule indicated that earlier precocious walking children, there was a correlation between that and high intelligence.
This may be true. It might be true within a group. I'm not sure of that.
Well, maybe
I know that there is a correlation in terms of things earlier than walking. In this, at the 6-month stage, Nancy Bailey at Berkeley has established that white children who come from the most advanced families and who later, when they become older, are...
God, I wish I knew his definition of the most advanced family. Like, what is he really talking about? Is he talking about families making over, like, what, $250,000? Or he's talking about families that don't have molesters in their ranks, or families who don't have murderers in their ranks? What is the most advanced families? It still puzzles me.
Are out at the top. At the first 6 months, they are relatively retarded compared to children who are from families of less accomplishment and who don't go as far. But this, so there are a number of these things certainly to be brought in.
Fine.
But this
Giselle schedule is a very authentic, accepted, institutional, psychological
and
experiment.
so is the Nancy Bailey early test.
I'd like to take another call. You're on Black Journal. Go ahead, please.
Hello. This question is addressed to Dr. Welsing. First, I would like to say that Mr. Brown and Dr. Welsing disprove immediately Dr. Shockley's concept, because here we have two highly intelligent, gifted people. But getting this out of the way, Dr. Welsing, wouldn't you agree that there is a strong genetic component to the inheritance of intelligence? Geneticists believe that 80% component is hereditary.
Oh, stop. Just stop. Hold on, let me draw on the spirit. If you want to have intelligent children, fuck what these three people are saying. If the mother and father during the time of mating and conception are truly in love and truly on the same page, those babies will come out right. If one is lying, one is deceitful, then those babies are going to amplify that deceit in neurological problems. And that's coming from the spirit realm. All right, let's continue.
Let me finish, Dr. Welsing. And then also, I think the association of skin color with intelligence is an erroneous concept. And I want your views on this. Isn't it true that the historic fate of black people, the tragic deprivation, the conditions under which they were raised, any people raised under these conditions would have an hereditary, evolutionary background, which could lead to poor capacity to generalize, to conceptualize, to create, to be creative in the form field of ideas, and develop other excellent attributes. Now, this is not a racist idea. This could happen to any group who has a tragic history of the black people.
Thank you.
No, I do not feel that there's any evidence to suggest that 80% of the ability to come to terms with your environment that has to do with heredity. I think that much of it has to do with the environmental opportunity that the genetic material is exposed to. I think that if we look at the black people, if we just take the black group, and we look at those people who have been able to achieve, and we look at their backgrounds, we will find that they have had substantial social and economic opportunities that maybe some of the segment of the black population has not had. We'll find the same thing in the white group. Those white people who have been socioeconomically deprived and at the bottom of the economic scale for.
And let's identify those folks. Those would be your low class, middle class workers, such as, you know, the miners out there in West Virginia, cowboys out there in Texas, basically the poor white folks, the uneducated white folks, or white folks who are plagued by mental illness, or all those folks are in the group that she's talking about.
Whites, that these people are not performing in the same way that people who have extended socioeconomic opportunity. One of the very interesting things is that white women are now talking about women's liberation, and they are looking at their performance relative to white men, and they are saying, and all of the spokesmen for white women, and men and women are also saying, that the reason that the white woman has less confidence in her performance and is not performing as well, relatively speaking, as the white male has been the attitudes within the white family as to the role of the woman versus the role of the man. Now, what is interesting is that when white people are looking at the difference in the performance of the white woman and the white man on IQ tests, they can account for that on the basis of environmental influences. However, when they shift over into looking at whites relative to people of color, somehow they want to drop that understanding and that awareness.
It's been interesting, to say the least. I'm happy you had your say, Dr. Shockley, and Dr. Welsing. I'm happy you had yours, and thank you for being.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted, Sister Gloria, most advanced families can mean the wealthiest families, but we all know behind great wealth is a great crime. Dr. Welsing is not dead today, brother. She's in our thoughts. We're talking about her right now, so she is most certainly alive. Thank you and welcome to the show. This is what I'm talking about. This program happened in 1974, y'all. Now, let's jump in our time machine and come to 2019, which we're all aware, we all see. Let's change this up here. And let's look at what's going on. Let's look at the news of today. Wide implication as Germany teeters towards recession. Hopefully you guys understand, man. Germany, China, the United States, powerhouses economically of the world. Germany has actually accomplished what it set out to accomplish in World War II, is an economic, basically, fortress of Europe. The EU, any of you guys heard of that little entity? For all you Disney workers, hopefully, let me get this over a little more. All right. Right here. Disney whistleblower claims revenues inflated for years. Just like Trump, just like the rest of them. But for real, all you people who think you know who the rich people are, you're sadly mistaken. The truly wealthy are not in the newspapers. The truly wealthy are not on the net. Now, I'm talking about trillions of dollars. Those folks you're not going to hear about. You're very seldom hear about Vanguard or BlackRock. But you are going to be influenced by their actions. Let me go over to this crazy chick right here. Hold on. Look at that. Elizabeth Warren. Oh, why does this jump? Elizabeth Warren right there. This is shameful. Is this not almost the equivalent of blackface? And let's just really break it down. Why do you think the native people of the United States, just like the native Jew, the image of said individual has been distorted, misrepresented, corrupted? Even the image of a true Aryan. That's an Indian from India, not from Germania. We have to understand what's at stake here, y'all. The hearts and minds of the people is not just a notion. This is what people are dying for out there. Jeffrey Epstein died, people, because of the information in his mind could link powerful people to some very dirty deeds. It goes back to the 48 rules of power. Come on, y'all, get with it. These people are playing a vicious game. And we're like a pack of gazelles. As long as that lion don't attack me, I'm good. But you see your cousin, your brother, your sister, your mother and father being devoured by the beast. What a world we could have, man, if we had unity. If we put these nut jobs and these megalomaniacs in their damn places. That's the biggest thing that they fear. The man or woman who's truly at top right now, as you hear these words coming from me, fear that we unite at the bottom. That we come on one accord. And this accord is for liberty and life and prosperity for us all. And that in itself is the tangible meaning of citizenhood and citizenship. And we defend it to the death. For if you do not defend a thing, it will be taken from you. That is a higher cause. That is the noble goal. But we have so many gatekeepers, so many goons set upon us. I want humanity, and that means all of us, to rise up and claim our collective birthright, claim our place on this planet, and claim our place in the universe. We're only here for a fraction of a time, sisters and brothers. We're only here for a fraction of a time. Let's not be unified in our time. Unified in our goals and unified in our works. If not, then fuck it. Time is going to repeat itself. We're going to continue down our bullshit road. Old boy's going to win. Everybody's going to be genetically damn near the same. It's going to find to be faulty and basically non-eternal. They're going to jump in their stupid time machine, or he, and go back and start the process all again. Sister Lawrence, unity is the key. Pat, they know all this. It's ours. We just don't. Grab Black Wall 3rd edition. Get them. You know, I don't give a fuck what anybody says about Brother David. Oh, he's a fucking whacked out moron. Fucking blah, blah, blah. Disrespectful, cocky. Whatever. He's right. In the law is the power. Through the law is the way. And unity together is the only play that matters. There's enough room on the mothership for us all. But the evilness and wickedness of hate, the destructive nature of hate, is why we all are collectively impoverished. Spiritually, physically, financially. Right now, every cure for every ailment is quite literally on earth. The only thing that is needed to bring it forth is our conscious thought and development of the serum or treatment. How many people could have been saved of cancer over the past 30 years if we were truly unified spiritually, physically, and financially? How many sexual predators could have been identified and brought to task if we would be unified? How many murders wouldn't have occurred? But this thing is very complicated. It's not as black and white as I'm trying to make it be today. There are people with hate in their heart. There are people with hate in their minds. There's people with hate in both places. But there's also people who are tag-alongs to people who are consumed with hate, and they're only doing the hate because they love that individual, and they don't want that individual to feel alone. You have to stop enabling the hate. You have to stop disconnecting yourself from the source, from your true liberation. And we have to quit falling from the okie doke, friends. Dr. Shockley is not dead. Dr. Brian Watson is not dead. They're still, and what I mean by not dead, I'm talking about the spirit of their intellectual endeavors is not dead. There's people out there feeding from the trough of hate and fear, and they're getting their bellies full. And their aggressions will soon turn to those that are deemed genetically inferior, that are deemed psychologically inferior, that are deemed inferior in general. God, I wish Brother Bird was here. Brother Derek. Judge Joe, Mark from Anaheim. I wish everybody was here right now so we just could have a mini conference. Because we are not talking about the problem, friends. Yes, we're talking about the consequences of the problems, all the mass shootings, the murders, the sorrow. Well, yeah, absolutely. We're talking about that, y'all. But how come we're not talking about solution? How come we're not talking about unity? How come we're not talking about humanity overcoming this bull, overcoming this mess, so the babies can have a brighter future, so that they can have the ability to choose the life that fits them? It's almost as if socially, spiritually, we're regressing to a better state. Blah, blah, blah. The knowledge is already outside the box, Brother David. We're not stuffing it back in. We can't go back and just be retarded to the fact that legally there is a way out. But that's what they want us to do. Brother Bishop, I needed this one as well. Time is drawing nigh, my friends. We have to stop the backlog. We have to stop the retrogressing of this thing. We have to push forward. The very power that makes us great is slowly slipping away from us. What I mean is, the generation that accepts it, the next generation does it. You think it's a game and you think this is playtime. It's over, friends. The generation that accepts it, the next generation does it. You accept supremacy, you accept nationalism, the next generation puts your ass to the task. There's not going to be no old white-haired motherfucker that pushes your ass into a train. It's going to be a young, strong individual that does that. So let's keep on playing our games. Let's just keep on keeping our heads in the sand, praying that it's not one of our kin or friend that gets popped out here on the streets. Let's keep looking for a political solution to a spiritual problem. And last but not least, let's keep on blaming the victims of financial warfare for their position instead of the aggressor in the financial warfare. Bam. With that note, brothers and sisters, I'm calling it an end. This has been TPIM SR Live. Today's date, August 20th, 2019. Tomorrow, I would have been on this earth 48 years, yeah. Confirmed. 48 years on earth. It's like being locked up in a jail for 48 years, quite literally. Dr. Welsing is still a brilliant individual. Her ability to formulate the thought that she did and the time in which she did it is quite brilliant. But if you look further into her, you'll see that she is just not a fluke. She has a family of people like that are great in so many ways. Even people who married into her family. Air Force majors, test pilots flying over poles. Major Lawrence. It's a shame that he crashed while he was tutoring or instructing another pilot. That pilot was able to eject, but Major couldn't. But you know, these men and women, the forebearers, they hacked the best they could with the machetes away a path through the jungle. Brothers and sisters and friends, comrades and allies, I ask now that we take pick and shovel to their bushwhack path and we lay down brick and stone and mortar and we build a road to success. for the younger members of our collective families. Live your life of integrity without hate, envy, or greed. And as always, brothers and sisters, let's try to be kinder to each other. Peace and power. I'm out.